was a very emotional morning inside of the courtroom on both sides of the aisle. Also, as we close, I'd like to remind you about the lawsuit that we filed against the Sheriff's Office. Sheriff Kristen Graziano. Live 5 News filed a lawsuit after the Sheriff's Office refused to grant us some documents. We were requesting the video calls from Ms. Komorowski while she was at the Al Cannon Detention Center. Those documents were shared with another media outlet, but they weren't shared with us, so we filed that suit. And in a hearing on July 10th, the judge agreed with us that the Sheriff's Office had indeed violated the Freedom of Information Act. Now, we've submitted a proposed order to get those documents, and we're now waiting on the judge to finalize that order. When that's going to happen, that we don't know. All we can do is wait, but of course we will let you know when that happens. Reporting live from the Charleston County Courthouse, I'm Raphael James. Back to you.
I just can't wait to get out of here.
The phone calls the Charleston County Sheriff's Office didn't want you to hear.
And she's like trying to help me out. You don't need, I don't want you in here, you should be with your family.
The sheriff accused of playing favorites toward a DUI suspect accused of killing a bride hours after her wedding.
She's the head deputy, whatever. She was really nice too.
After a Live 5 battle in the courtroom, we have obtained hours of calls and videos.
We don't care what happened, we care only about you.
A DUI suspect denied bond and still behind bars.
Dad, what did you do?
Live 5 News at 11 starts right now.
Now, from the Low Country's news leader, this is Live 5 News.
Tonight, we are bringing you a first look of jailhouse calls involving a suspect in a deadly crash that killed a newlywed bride on Folly Beach back in April. 25-year-old Jamie Komorowski is charged with 3 counts of felony DUI. On April 28th, authorities say Komorowski rear-ended a golf cart on East Ashley Avenue. One passenger, Samantha Miller, who had just gotten married earlier in the evening, died in that crash. Her groom, Eric Hutchinson, and 2 of Hutchinson's family members were injured in the crash. Reports state that Komorowski was going 65 miles per hour when the posted speed island-wide is 25 miles per hour. A blood toxicology report shows that Komorowski's blood alcohol level was .261 the night of the crash, more than 3 times the legal limit in South Carolina.
I never get to see my daughter again. If and when she does get sentenced, after she does her time, she'll have the rest of her life with her family.
All I can say is one person is responsible for tearing our lives apart, and a community.
Well, in newly released footage, Jamie Komorowski can be heard discussing many things, including a visit from Charleston County Sheriff Kristen Graziano. Emily Johnson joining us now. And Emily, what more can you tell us about the allegations against the sheriff?
Yes, Michael. Well, many have questioned possible signs of special treatment from Sheriff Kristen Graziano towards Komorowski from videos that you are about to see. Graziano addressed concerns of favoritism. She wrote multiple emails saying there was in fact nothing to worry about. The footage was released today after weeks of legal battle between Live 5 and the sheriff's office, when the office refused to release public materials after already giving them to the Post and Courier.
Here's the up thing. So I'm not in the regular part upstairs because of everything on the news and everything.
Following accusations of special treatment, footage of Komorowski shows her speaking with her boyfriend and father about Graziano, speaking to and visiting her in jail. Jamie says Sheriff Graziano is, quote, trying to help her out.
My dad said not for you not to talk to anyone about this or anything, but the deputy sheriff, the head person of Charleston County, I met with her today, and she's trying to help me out.
The jail's website states that personal visitation is only online and only attorneys can visit in person.
Being really sincere and she really wants to help, and so I'm really happy. She also is the one that got my mom and dad able to visit me in person. like through a glass, but like in person.
In logs of calls made by Komorowski since she's been in jail, records show she attempted to make 271 calls during her first 23 days in jail from April 29th to May 21st. Of those calls, only 128 were completed. Komorowski expresses to her loved ones through tears how concerned she is about how long she will have to spend in jail and what others will think of her once she gets out.
That just like makes me scared that the media is so involved in it. Why are they so involved in it? Like,
because it sells newspapers. That's why, baby.
but that's not gonna help me. Like, oh my God, it's gonna be so bad when I get out. Everybody's gonna be so mean to me.
Throughout the videos that we have watched so far, Komorowski appears to show no remorse towards the crash or even mention the victims.
I still just don't know why this had to happen to me. I don't want to go to prison for 15 years. And I'm just, when all of this is done, and I can just be happy.
One key thing to remember throughout this entire case is not forgetting about the life lost and those affected by the tragedy.
My daughter meant the world to me. And I'm sure their daughter means the world to them. She doesn't need extra time to hug her family. She'll get it in the end.
During Komorowski's bond hearing on Tuesday, the judge denied bond, saying he felt that she was a flight risk.
She didn't just kill my daughter. She killed all of us.
We spoke with Samantha Miller's mother and sister today in response to the newly released footage, with them saying, quote, "We are so happy with the results of the judge's call for the bond hearing on Tuesday. I don't know if any of these calls and transcripts were actually in play of the judge's decision." They also added, "It hurts, but Sam is who she is, despite the fact that she isn't here, and Jamie is who she is." Reporting in the studio live, Emily Johnson, back to you, Michael.
Unfortunately, not the way we would like for it to. Let's talk right about what's going on. First alert weather day, Sunday morning through the evening. That's the time frame of the highest impacts for us. Heavy rain, gusty winds, coastal flooding, all possibilities out of this storm that's going to develop down in the Gulf of Mexico.
What we're talking about as far as flood watches, we do have a flood watch for the Tri-County area all the way south. So just kind of put that in the planning, because not only will we'll have some heavy rainfall, we'll have some tides coming up a little bit later on. In fact, 11:17 is the tide. Flood stage happens at about 7 feet. Some of the tides predicted to be almost 8 feet. So again, could be a problem here to about midday when you add that rain on top of it with some gusty winds. Here's future tracker between now and say lunchtime. Notice a lot of rain will continue to spin into the area. Then after lunch through tonight, it'll be on again, off again, but still even through 8 o'clock tonight, still some rain showers. And then by tomorrow morning, all
Our Caitlin Ashbaugh reports on what she saw today and shares the route to recovery for some who lost nearly everything.
The back door started coming with a bunch of water, and it hit everything.
Ankle deep in flood water, the reality for families on Drake Street in downtown Charleston.
I can't look like this. I just can't.
After a coastal storm brought record number high tides to the area, flooding, rain, and wind with it.
Because of a flood, we had to completely demo and reconstruct everything I had built. About a month exactly again to the day, and we're closed. Yoga studio owner Kate Moon says it's the second time she's had to start from scratch this year due to flood damage. It's devastating, and I'm just scared to death as to what this all looks like for me. I don't know where to go. On the opposite end of Calhoun Street near the James Island Expressway, cars turn around on the overpass to avoid tire-deep water levels. Other cars stuck, abandoned, other than the most important valuables found inside.
It was flooded and I tried to turn right by the median, but the rain was low and still got me stuck.
And we are bringing you up to speed now on what has been going on. Michael Higdon and Blair Sable are in Columbia for us there. We are wanting to know if there is a ruling this evening. We're going to start with Michael.
And Roth, Blair Sable is in the courtroom right now, where we are expecting any moment now for a retired South Carolina Supreme Court Chief Justice Jean Toll to rule whether a convicted murderer Alex Murdaugh will be getting a retrial. Now, she has said from the very beginning that she does not want this hearing to drag on. We were initially expecting this to last about 3 days, but we heard from the first juror starting on Friday, the other 11 before lunch today, and then we heard from Becky Hill herself, the woman who is accused of tampering with this jury. Now, the day kicked off with Toll questioning each juror from the trial about accusations that Hill influenced the jury's verdict. Juror Z was the first of those 11 jurors called today when former South Carolina Chief Justice Jean Toll asked Juror Z about comments that she overheard from Hill. She said it affected her verdict. Now, when pressed by Toll after being presented with her original affidavit, where she actually said the jury had pressured her, she said it was a more accurate representation of what had actually happened. Now, it was after Juror Z left the stand that Toll actually informed the court that other jurors waiting to be questioned had their cell phones and may have been watching the questioning of the 3 jurors that did watch that testimony. All 3 said that it had no sway on their testimony today. Now, I just got a message from our Blair Sable, who is in the courtroom right now. She said that, again, Chief Justice Jean Toll is back on the stand. Let's go ahead and head back to that live shot right now.
Did Clerk of Court Hill's comments have any impact on the verdict of the jury? I find that the answer to this question is no. Each member of this jury took their involuntary assignment very seriously. They obeyed the instructions of the court. They obeyed their oath. These good and decent citizens of Colleton County stood to their duty and rendered their verdict without fear or favor. It was a difficult task. 11 of the jurors very unconditionally said they either heard no comment, or if they heard a comment, it had no effect.
So we've got the attorneys right now, the defense attorneys for Alex Murdaugh, and they are talking. Let's go ahead and let's listen into that.
Influence these jurors that she made these statements. With the facts resolved, the only issue is what is the law? And as Judge Toll said, that is unsettled. This is not, it's going to go through the appellate courts, and we feel strongly that we'll win.
So you've been listening in to defense attorneys Jim Griffin and Dick Harpootli in there for Alex Murdaugh, saying, of course, they're disappointed in the judge's ruling in this situation. So what's next? Is this the end of the road, or do they still have another shot at getting a new trial for Alex Murdaugh?
It's the end of the road from an evidentiary standpoint. We won't have any more hearings in Colleton County or Columbia in front of a circuit court judge. Everything will now be handled by our appeals process, the Court of Appeals. I expect them to not only file this appeal relatively soon with our Court of Appeals, but also, as you may have heard them reference there, maybe look into some constitutional violations in the federal court. There's an appellate system that protects defendants under Sixth Amendment right, so to speak. This may be the last we've heard of it at the state level.
Thanks for joining us, everyone. I'm Ann McGill, and we are continuing to follow that breaking news for you out of Somerville about an officer-involved shooting. We now know that it is a deadly officer-involved shooting that happened just hours ago. SLED, the Dorchester County Sheriff's Office, and the Somerville Police Department on the scene right now. We're going to go live to the scene for you with our Emily Johnson. She is there off of North Main Street. And Emily, you have some new information for us.
Yes, and well, since we last talked, we learned that this officer-involved shooting was with an off-duty Somerville police officer, and he was actually not shot during the incident. Now, he is recovering at Trident Medical Center with non-life-threatening injuries. But a white male was pronounced dead on the scene, and the Berkeley County Coroner's Office is now working on identifying his body at the scene currently. Now, this incident all occurred around 1:10 to 1:15 off of North Main Street in Somerville, outside of the Chick-fil-A. Now, like Ann mentioned, SLED is taking lead on this investigation, and the Berkeley County Coroner's Office tells me that they will be out here investigating and collecting evidence all night long. Now, we've spoken to a few people on the scene that we will hear from in later shows tonight about what they saw and how this incident went down. Reporting live in Somerville, Emily Johnson, Live 5 News.
Good afternoon, everyone. Michael Higdon coming to you from the Alert Desk, where we are learning new information from Somerville Police regarding the deadly off-duty officer-involved shooting that happened on Wednesday. I want to show you the picture of the officer involved. This is Patrolman First Class Anthony DeLustro. DeLustro was taken to the hospital with non-life-threatening injuries after the shooting. We are still working to find out how he was hurt. The Berkeley County coroner identified the shooting victim as Michael O'Neill. This all happened again outside the Chick-fil-A on North Main Street in the middle of the day on Wednesday. Now, the State Law Enforcement Division was called in to investigate. A release from SLED this afternoon did not reveal any new details of the shooting. Other than that, it is not being investigated as, quote, an officer-involved shooting. Again, DeLustro was off duty at the time of this shooting. We also have a statement from the Somerville Police Chief Douglas Wright. It reads in part, quote, on behalf of the Somerville Police Department, we offer our thoughts and prayers to the O'Neill family for the tragic loss of their loved one. Yesterday, I spoke with Michael's parents and offered my sincere condolences. Our police officer was treated and released after suffering non-life-threatening injuries. Our deepest prayers are with him and his family during this difficult time. This event was a struggle for all who were involved. Again, that's a partial quote from Chief Douglas Wright from the Somerville Police Department. According to Wright, Anthony DeLustro started his career with the New York City Police Department in 1980. DeLustro, this was his second stint with Somerville Police. He rejoined their ranks on January of 2023. Again, this is a developing story. SLED is still investigating, and we'll keep you posted as soon as we learn more.
In 1987, Goose Creek was a much sleepier town than it is today. But on the eve of January 30th, there was nothing but chaos.
There was no killings that you heard of. So when my dad got murdered, it was devastating for the whole community.
Joe the barber had locked up his business, but never made it home that night. It's been 37 years, and his killer has not been caught. What happened that night when Josefino Bugarin headed to his truck has haunted his daughter Joy's coffin ever since.
It was a nightmare.
He apparently was struck on the head with a blunt instrument by one or more assailants.
They had beat him pretty bad. There was blood on the side of the wall where it looked like maybe he tried to get up.
Cawthon says one of her dad's greatest strengths was his generosity that ultimately became his weakness. He was known to carry thousands of dollars in cash on him at all times.
If only the ones who killed my dad had taken the money and run away. If only they had love in their hearts, you would be with us today.
Cawthon remembers him as a well-liked fixture in the community, and like so many hairdressers, a trusted confidant for so many.
This is him giving my son his first haircut.
Over the years since his death, she's collected every piece she has left of him, hoping to hold on to the moments they had after robbed of the ones that could have been.
They may do it again.
Cawthon, a young mother at the time of her father's death, spent years seeking to hold the killers accountable.
The detective there at the time, I would go check with him. I think he got tired of seeing me. And it just seemed like they never had any answers for me.
They wouldn't come until nearly 10 years after Bugarin's death. 4 were charged in connection. Crystal Chitham Nash, Richard Allen Russum, as well as 2 children of City Councilman Sal Gandolfo, Dean Gandolfo, and his brother Sal Gandolfo Jr. Gandolfo owned a business nearby.
I was happy about it, but then after that came so many other disappointments.
2 years later, the charges were dropped by Solicitor Brent Allen Gray due to lack of evidence and a misleading witness statement. And later, the group sued the city for millions, claiming their arrests had violated their civil rights and cost Gandolfo the election for mayor. The city settled for an undisclosed amount. Time went on, and the case went cold again, until Chief L.J. Roscoe took office.
I just felt like it was something that if we dug just a little bit deeper, there was a possibility that we could solve the case.
A year ago, Brock Borton was fighting for his life in the hospital. Nobody, not even his doctors, knew if he was going to survive, let alone be able to step onto a baseball field again.
Well, with what I was being told, I was not really faithful in thinking I was going to come back like the same or better.
I would go home and I would unfortunately tell my wife, I don't think this kid's gonna make it, multiple times. And every time we'd figure out a way to get him through it as a team.
But after winning the fight for his life and thanks to an incredible team at MUSC, Brock is back playing baseball on the varsity team at Hanahan High School and ready to deal from the mound again. Brock's neurosurgeon Ramin Eskandari says what started as a sinus infection quickly led to an intracranial infection.
He doesn't remember this. He had 11 neurosurgical procedures. He didn't have just one surgery. He was in the hospital in an induced coma for several weeks with brain pressures that would have killed pretty much anybody.
It's wild to think about because that's not something normally like someone goes through.
But at one point he had half his skull removed because his brain pressure was so high that he would have died.